Next, Dr. Thomas George, sir, will be talking on the freedom formula. Retire early, live fully, leave a legacy.
Thank you, Samir, for inviting me to this session. And Anup, though he said, ask people above 60, I'm going to tell you how to retire. So, retirement in a financial sense is not stopping work altogether and sitting back at home. It is a situation where we do not have to work in order to survive. We have financially secure. We do not have to earn money by working. We can sit, but not earn and still manage to survive. It is not sitting lazily without doing anything. So it can happen at any time in your active life itself. And how much money should I save to be independent financially to reach this level? First of all, like all of us have been saying so far, any financial calculation is subject to unknown risks. There are a lot of unknowns. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. This is not only for mutual funds, it is for any investment. And we generally consider banks and bank investments safe, but we have seen in the news of late, many banks have just collapsed, and banks are not 100% safe. At best, the variables that we need will be an estimate. And the first variable we need to know is your actual income, which is your post tax income. Tax you have to pay anyway. So, what is after tax is what you have in hand. And that is what is at your disposal. So, the next variable we need is how much money are you spending now for your routine expenses, present expenses. Present income over expenditure is needed to know your expenses at the present lifestyle that you're used to and watch out for escalation of lifestyle like Samira was saying sometime back. It is not a mental calculation. You'll get it wrong. You'll miss out that one cup of coffee you bought and things like that. So write every expense in a book for a couple of months and you will know what you actually need on a monthly basis. Actually, one needs to write it for a year because Deepavali and Onam and all come in different months and you will have a spike and that has to be planned as well. So there are necessary expenses that are the needs, optional expenses that are wants, and absolutely unwanted expenses which are luxuries, but we tend to go about it. And one way that we are off late, very guilty, is see something on the phone, click, 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 bought. If you had thought about it for one day, you would wonder why you even wanted to buy it. So there's this 50, 30, 20 guideline that's, all these percentages are just to make you think in compartments. People will say different things. Here, what I'm saying is 50 is for necessities, absolute necessities, 30 is for wants, and 20 can be saved is for investments in the long term. So 50% is for necessities. By necessities, we mean absolute necessities, roti, kapda, makan, like things. And 30% is optionals. Once in a way, give yourself a treat, dinner, splurge, holiday trip, entertainment. You can keep 30% for that. But this 20% we say should be saved, should be cut off at the start so that you save 20% every time. It is not what is left. It is you have to save at least this much is what a rule you have to fix. So now we have some sort of a number to work on, and let's say you need 50,000 per month for the sake of calculating further. And when you say you want to retire at a certain age, let's say 60 years of age, 60 minus your present age is the years left in which to make this corpus. So if you're 40, you've got 20 years. And long back, my granddad told me when he got employed first, he was paid rupees 27 per month, and his family of 6 lived on 16, and 11 was sent home to his parents. And from this 16, in a year, he could buy 2 sovereigns. But that's way back in 1927. Absolute purchasing power comes down with years as they go past, and that's called the inflation rate. So if we say the inflation rate is 5% this month, What it means is last year, this month, if you could buy something for 1 rupee, this year, this month, you need 1 rupee and 5 paise to buy the same thing. So inflation rate in India is average around 5-ish. That is between 2015-16 to 25. And it is not a fixed number. It was 8.2 in the 10 years before that and reaching a high of 12.17. This is the post 2000 data that I'm talking about, because what is before was some fluctuating much more. And a record low was the last month where it was only 0.25. So it can keep fluctuating. So let's peg it at some reasonable number, 7-ish, so that you overestimate inflation to be a little safer. And if you need 50,000 to survive now, 20 years later, with compound interest, that same amount would be 1,93,484.22. That's approximately 2 lakhs. So 20 years down the line, if you're living on 50,000 now, you will need 2 lakhs to keep the same lifestyle. So there's a trick to doing it, which was talked about already. That is, your returns should stay ahead of the inflation rate, and consider the tax on returns as well when you're talking about this. And we have seen how to go about it already. Suppose you have an FD, you have an interest just under 7% now. That's the maximum interest you can possibly get for a FD in a regular bank. And tax on the interest is to be deducted from this to see the growth. So if you are in the 20% tax bracket, you cut that down and your effective interest rate is now only 5.6. 7, 20% down, 5.6. So it is under our assumed inflation rate of 7% already. So actually you are losing money in an FD. Nobody will agree with me because absolute numbers go up, but the inflation pegged in, you're actually losing value to that money when you have it in an FD. So we need to find a way of getting at least to 8% to stay ahead. And that brings us to the next concept, that is the nest egg, the amount we need so that you can continue forever with that amount. So you should be able to take little bits out of it. You should not take the whole thing out in one go. So you need it liquid. So real estate is not the way to go as physical real estate, because you can't sell 1 square meter each time. You have to sell the whole damn thing in one shot when you sell it, and you may not be able to sell it at the right time. So the remainder will keep growing even if you take a little bit out of this nest egg. So inflation rate, return on investment, life expectancy, unforeseen need for bulk expenses, but there are some thumb rules. We need a nest egg amount at 60. It'll keep growing at the rate it is supposed to grow. And how much can you withdraw without ever running out? And you would calculate for a maximum of 9,500 years. Maximum, you don't need to bother too much to be outside of that statistical possibility. So present expense of 50,000. I'm running out of time. 2 lakhs required. So your annual expense is 24 lakhs. This is the magic number you work on. The Indian magazines have been saying about some 30x rules. It brings this number to 7.2 crores to be the nest egg 20 years down the line when you need to retire. I think it's a high estimate, but then this is derived from the 4% withdrawal rate rule published by somebody in 1992, William Bengen. And he has subsequently revised it to a 4.7% as being a safe withdrawal. And this is actually for the US markets. He has accounted for, he's basically used the stock markets, and he's accounted for all these dips that have happened in the past. And why he has revised it a little higher is because the crashes have been recurring faster of late. Samira, I'll take a little more time. So if we calculate 4% withdrawal rate, 2 lakhs per month, we would land up with a new number that is 6 crores, and that would be what you need if you need to spend 50,000 now, and 20 years down the line, that's the nest egg you need. So the corpus we need is 6 to 7 crores at 60. If you have 40, and spend 50,000 per month. Consistent saving is a mix of investments that stay ahead of inflation and save before you spend. Invest wisely what you save. And we need to save about 40 to 50% post tax to achieve these goals in 20 years. If you start earlier and you got more time, you'll be able to do it with 20 to 30% of your post tax income. And if somebody manages to save 15%, which in a doctor community at 20 years of age, you'll still be in MBBS, is a utopian possibility. So leave that out. So higher risk investments tend to give higher returns. When younger, go for the higher risk investments, and one can easily find your portfolio growing 15 to 20% when you average more than 5 years. This is the stock market return, and Indian stock market has averaged around 19.7 returns. And this is an international site that is monitoring all the stock markets. So our stock market will give you a reasonable return. And this is the Sensex performance. And look at the big dip we have had recently, 2008, minus 37. But the very next year, it's bounced back with a plus 77. All the things will average to you. Your stock market returns are around 15.91 is the Sensex returns. This over 2 decades. So if you need to save 6 crores in 20 years and you're going by FD, you need a monthly saving of 1,15,000. And if you're going at some instrument that is giving you 10%, it is 80,000. Something that gives you 15%, which is basically the Sensex returns, it's 40,000. So unless you are a stock market junkie, you won't go for a higher return. I mean, be sold on it. It's basically, if you want higher returns, you go and take the lottery. Hopefully, you'll get it. So this is the mutual fund growth that has been there. In our Indian scenario, small capital funds tend to have higher risk, and they tend to grow at around 20%. Mid cap, less risk, and large cap has the lowest risk, but the returns also come down when the risks come down. And any equity mutual fund is going to give you average 5 to 7 years returns in the range of 13 to 15%. And that's the only way really to stay ahead and get to these goals. Thank you.